before we get underway, hi everyone, I'm Minky Warden from Human Rights Watch. Show of hands, who's in town for the World Cup draw? Holy cow. All right, this was a good strategy. Show of hands, who's going to the Giuliani White House World Cup Task Force right after this? Okay, a few people? All right, great. This is a much better show to be at, so thank you for coming today. Sound on this mic, how is it? Does it work for everyone? Yes? Okay. Greetings. I think we will get underway. Oh, great. Dynamite. Thank you. Catherine. Oh. Thank you. Well, why don't we put it on the coffee table? Thank you. We are getting underway. So welcome to those of you in the room and also online. I'm Minky Warden. I'm the Director of Global Initiatives at Human Rights Watch, which means that I cover sport and human rights worldwide. I'll be your moderator for the event today, and the topic is human rights and the 2026 FIFA World Cup. There's a lot of excitement about any World Cup, but the two most recent FIFA World Cups in Russia and Qatar were associated with grave human rights abuses, including thousands of preventable deaths of migrant workers. The U.S., Canada, and Mexico World Cup was supposed to be a game changer for human rights, the first World Cup ever with a human rights strategy. Today, we are going to hear whether those promises are being delivered. We have experts on human rights, press freedom, the rights of migrants and asylum seekers, athletes' rights, and workers' rights. We will also hear about new human rights risks and what are the responsibilities of the main players in the World Cup delivery: FIFA, the U.S. government, and the 16 host city committees. This week is a critical time to revisit this topic with new research and experts' perspectives. On Friday, Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, and Donald Trump, the U.S. president, will participate in the World Cup draw at the Kennedy Center to determine which teams will play each other. FIFA has also announced its inaugural FIFA Peace Prize to be awarded on Friday. That prize has no transparent process, no nominees, no judges, and was, by the way, apparently news to the FIFA Council, which is the governing body of FIFA. A few housekeeping notes for our press conference today. I want to remind you that this session will be recorded for journalists who can't be with us at this time. If you have a question, please put it in, and you're on the Zoom link, please put it in the chat with your name and news organization, and I will work to direct all questions in and outside of the room to our experts. I do want to be clear that each of the groups speaking here today has its own mandate, and we partners are each speaking in our own independent capacity. Another note about the topic today. Human Rights Watch and our colleagues here, Amnesty International, the ACLU, RSF, and others, we regularly report on conditions in Canada and Mexico, as we have for decades. But the U.S. is hosting the vast majority of the games in 11 cities. That is a total of 78 out of 104 of these games. So think 78 Super Bowls in the United States, including the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the final at MetLife Stadium. And the human rights and immigration landscape has changed markedly since January 2025. So due to the severity of recent U.S. legal and political developments, our analysis today is focusing on the United States as a principal host nation. In the coming months, we will also be reporting on human rights abuses in Canada and Mexico. So a short explanation first. In less than 200 days, the World Cup opens. It was supposed to be the largest and most inclusive sporting event in history, 48 nations, an estimated 6.5 million attendees, a lot of journalists. A truly global celebration, but increasingly it appears the world is not welcome, at least here in the United States. As only months remain until the kickoff on June 11, human rights trends are not going in the right direction. To illustrate this, Human Rights Watch is publishing new research today. It's a previously unreported case of an arrest, a family separation, and a deportation separation of a fan and a father at the Club World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in July. His father, who loves soccer, planned a special day with his children at a FIFA tournament. He used a small drone to try to take a family photo in the adjacent American Dream parking lot. Instead of enjoying the day watching football with his 10 and 14-year-old sons, the father, an asylum seeker, was arrested, turned over to ICE, held for 3 months in New Jersey's Delaney Hall detention facility, and then deported. A minor drone violation became a 3-month detention and then a deportation. The family separation happened because of a failure by FIFA to properly assess the risks for fans and families and to mitigate those risks. This is not an isolated case. From January 20 to October 15 of this year, ICE arrested at least 92,392 people in and around cities where the World Cup games will be played, according to government data that's been newly analyzed by Human Rights Watch. This reporting is now live, and we have copies of it on the coffee table over there. So I'm now turning to our partners in the Sport and Rights Alliance and Dignity 2026. Although trends are not going in the right direction, the good news is that there are coalitions, experts documenting these abuses and pressing FIFA and the 16 host city committees to uphold their own international human rights policies, to follow the rule of law, to follow international human rights. So first we are going to hear from Rachel Causey of the Sport and Rights Alliance, and we also have one of the leaders of Dignity 2026. So there are two large alliances representing a total of 26 different groups with us today, and this is the coalition that is standing up to the power of FIFA and the power of football to cover up serious human rights abuses. So with that, I'll turn over to Rachel Causey, Communications Coordinator for the Sport and Rights Alliance.
Yes, thank you so much, Minky, and thank you all for joining in person and online. My name is Rachel Causey. I'm the Communications Coordinator, as Minky said, for the Sport and Rights Alliance. A special thank you to Human Rights Watch for hosting. Closer. Human Rights Watch, one of our founding members. Thank you so much. If you don't know, the Sport and Rights Alliance is a coalition of leading civil society organizations and trade unions, including HRW, Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders, the ITUC, World Players Association, and more. We represent and engage with athletes, workers, fans, journalists, and local communities, especially those most impacted by the human rights risks of sport, such as women, children, LGBTI people, people of color, survivors of abuse. We conduct research, advocacy, and campaigns to ensure that the rights and well-being of those most impacted by sport are respected and protected. The SRA was founded 10 years ago, actually, in between the back-to-back mega sporting events of the 2014 Brazil World Cup and the 2016 Rio Olympics. I know some of you here today might have been at our very first press conference held with Amnesty International at Rio de Janeiro. And so, as you know, as Nikki said, we're now facing a very similar situation here in the United States with the Men's World Cup in just 6 months and then the LA Olympics 2 years after that. As a founding member of the Dignity 2026 coalition over the last 6 years, with our partners and with everyone here at the table, we have been working to raise the bar for human rights, not only for these 3 host countries, the US, Mexico, and Canada, but for all countries who are planning to stage this event in the future. In fact, this World Cup is the very first to have human rights in the bidding criteria from the very beginning, in the bidding criteria, the requirements for all host country candidates. This, plus the addition of human rights into the Article 3 of the FIFA statutes, was a huge achievement for our movement and a moment of real hope. But now, with the devolving situation of human rights in the United States, this has put those commitments and advances at risk. So we're calling on FIFA and the host committees to reaffirm their commitments to human rights and take concrete action to ensure that this tournament does not contribute to or exacerbate harm for the people and communities involved. Please enjoy the rest of the press briefing and let us know if you have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone should sign up for the Sport and Rights Alliance media list to make sure you see our coverage from all over the world. And now we turn to Jennifer Lee, who is the coordinator from Dignity 2026, and she is also the director of the Community Health and Innovation Program at Georgetown Law School. And Jennifer has been present from the creation of the Dignity 2026 and back in 2018 when there were the bidding process that included human rights for the first time. That was really the beginning of Dignity 2026. We were the stakeholders consulted. So Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you, Minky. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Lee, as Minky has already mentioned. I am director of the Center for Community Health Innovation at Georgetown Law School here in Washington, D.C. I also lead the Dignity 2026 Coalition, which is currently comprised of 16 civil society stakeholders here in the United States, including many members represented here today, NAACP, ACLU, SRA, Human Rights Watch, and many others who are unable to join us today. As Minky mentioned, we have been working together in close coordination since as early as 2018, when the United States, Mexico, and Canada submitted a bid to host the game next year. And our work includes, a part of our work includes working in close coordination with FWC 2026. In fact, much of our collaboration and consultations with the FIFA 2026 team in Miami has been highly constructive over the course of the past few years. That includes our providing significant input on the human rights framework that FIFA has shared with host cities that outlines expectations for host cities in terms of how they engage on issues like safety and inclusion, workers' rights, and access to remedies and grievance mechanisms. Our hope, of course, is that these principles will be substantively and meaningfully reflected in the host cities' action plans, which we expect to see in the early part of next year. And of course, we are very much hoping and encouraging host city committees to make sure that the stakeholders, the grassroots organizations in their cities who are boots on the ground on these issues, are able to meaningfully consult and view those action plans well before then. In addition to our sometimes very frank exchanges with FIFA, we are also working to mobilize grassroots stakeholders within cities and across all 16 host cities, and particularly those 11 here in the United States. And I want to say that finally, it's important to note that in addition to the host city committees and our expectations for them, we want to make sure that FIFA itself is held accountable to their own business and human rights practices, certainly in line with the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights, which includes preventing and mitigating any harms that FIFA itself may contribute to or that are acted upon by government entities. So as Minky mentioned, we are 200 days or about 7 months out from the start of the tournament, and I think for many of us this is an unprecedented moment. You see before you today some of the most prominent civil liberties and civil rights organizations here in the United States coming together to express some of our concerns and also indeed expectations for next year. You'll hear from us many different issues, including, for example, I think for many of us, immigration is top of mind. Over the summer, some members of our coalition worked closely with Fair Square to publish and organize a public sign-on letter directed to President Infantino, expressing our concerns about this administration's current policies around immigration and the impact that it will have on communities, workers, fans, visitors, and the people who already live here. To date, that letter has not been publicly acknowledged or responded to by FIFA, even though it's signed by over 90 civil society organizations here in the United States. Another issue, of course, is the impact of the tournament on some of our most vulnerable community members, including people who are experiencing homelessness or are housing insecure, people who face risks of being displaced by the tournament or even criminalized for their status as part of so-called beautification efforts or cleaning up efforts by the host cities. This is especially important to us in the wake of last year's Supreme Court decision in Grants Pass versus Johnson, which essentially held that it was constitutional for cities to criminalize sleeping outdoors in our communities. You will also hear shortly from Kathy Feingold, who is the international director at the AFL-CIO, which has been a founding partner in our coalition and has been an anchor on our labor rights issues across the past few years. We know that workers, of course, are the backbone to the tournament, and they will be also vulnerable to unsafe working conditions like heat stress or low wages and other types of issues. And then we've seen how some of these issues, including placement, overplacing, and so forth, has expressed itself in many ways in past tournaments here in the United States, including in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, 1984 Olympics in LA, which are host cities for next year. And for us, they serve as cautionary tales about how not to proceed. So the next year, for many of us, it will be a real test of FIFA's actions and commitments to human rights, as well as those of host cities. I think one thing that we can agree on with FIFA very clearly is that the unprecedented scale of the tournament, which is 104 Super Bowl-sized matches or Taylor Swift concerts, pick your poison, it's unprecedented for many of us. And the bottom line is that in addition to making sure that FIFA is held accountable, I think the message today, too, is that FIFA's reputation, human rights, is, of course, well documented, but FIFA cannot be used as a shield by host cities and governments in the United States or Canada, Mexico, to hide behind human rights abuses. In many ways, of course, 2026 is also unique because of the fact that the responsibilities for the operations of the tournament and the human rights protections are diffuse across many different stakeholders, including FIFA, but also host cities, host city committees, and various aspects of government. So every entity has a role to play, including all of us in this room as civil society stakeholders, as press, and as stakeholders broadly. But happily, I think the United States has a rich history of civil society organizations being movement builders and agitators, as Jamal likes to frequently say, to make sure that human rights conditions are protected. So with that, are we ready to introduce the video? I want to introduce Kathy Feingold, who of course is the International Director at the AFL-CIO and is Deputy President of the International Trade Union Confederation, or ITUC,